breaking news. Ukraine advances near Kostiantynivka as front shifts.
It is Sunday, February 2026, and yeah, the map of the Donbass is changing by the hour.
Before we get into all the heavy stuff, if you want to stay ahead of the curve in this conflict, you really need to support the people bringing you the truth.
Subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports.
I'm Alex. Join me with Aria in the latest podcast by Defense Report for a sharp, no-nonsense breakdown of the latest in global defense news, military technology, and strategic developments. And today we're going to cover, well, the intense, grinding battle for the fortress belt in Donbass.
We're also looking at a new Russian tactical shift. They're calling it the Iron Claw.
And the terrifying evolution of drone warfare. I mean, we're talking about drones that are literally hunting logistics trucks 50 kilometers behind the lines.
We're also going to look at a fascinating, if pretty disturbing internal crisis within the Russian military command, something they're calling the Beautiful Report. And it might be doing more damage to their army than the enemy is.
And stick around, because we absolutely need to talk about why Russian generals are claiming victories in cities they don't actually control. Plus, the new Malnaya drone threat that's changing the rules of the highway, and the truth about that massive power grid failure that happened just yesterday, January 31st.
It's a lot to cover. But our mission here on the Deep Dive is to, cut through the fog of war. We've gone through the ISW reports, the geolocated footage, all the critical threat assessments, so you don't have to.
We're going to extract the insights that actually matter.
Let's do it.
Okay, let's unpack this. We have to start with the map. Everyone is looking at Kostiantynivka. If you've been following the war, you know this name. But why is this specific sector, the Kostiantynivka-Druzhkivka area, why is it suddenly the center of the universe today?
Because it's the linchpin. We aren't just talking about a random town here. This is part of what military analysts call the fortress belt. It's a chain of cities. Kramatorsk, Kostiantynivka, Druzhkivka, Sloviansk, that represents Ukraine's strongest defensive line in the Donbass. It's all geographically integrated. It's on high ground. If this belt snaps,
then the whole defense is in trouble.
Critically compromised,
Right.
Yeah. The operational depth of the Ukrainian defense in the east is just gone.
Right, and for the longest time, that line held firm. It was the immovable object. But the reports from the last, 24 hours are intense. We're seeing Russian advances near Stupachki,
If you're west of the city.
west of the city, and infiltration efforts to the south. It feels like the pressure is really peaking.
It is peaking. But here's the nuance that a lot of headlines are missing. And it's a vital piece of context for, anyone supporting Ukraine's defense.
Okay.
Despite this massive, overwhelming pressure, we have confirmed reports and geolocated footage from January 31st, so yesterday, showing a successful Ukrainian counter-advance.
This is the Yablunivka situation, right?
Yes, exactly. North of Yablunivka. Now, looking at a zoomed-out map, moving a line a few hundred meters might not seem like much to the casual observer. But tactically, this is huge.
Why? What makes Yablunivka so special?
It protects the N20 highway. That highway is the lifeblood of the fortress belt. If the Russians cut the N20, or even just get fire control over it,
Logistics grind to a halt.
the whole defensive line starts to choke. You can't get ammo in, you can't get wounded out. So by pushing the Russians back at Yablunivka, Ukrainian forces effectively reopened the lungs of the defense.
And the way they did it was clever, right? I was reading about how they used the terrain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They utilized the high ground to spot Russian infiltration groups moving through the fog. And that's a key detail. The weather is becoming a major player. The reports mention that Russian assault groups are specifically timing their movements with the fog and rain to try and bypass drone surveillance.
It's a cat-and-mouse game. The Russians try to hide in the bad weather, but the Ukrainians hold the heights and can spot them anyway. But we have to talk about the cost. Kostiantynivka itself. Reading the descriptions of the city right now is, it's just heartbreaking.
It's tragic. This used to be a bustling logistical hub. The Kyiv War train used to arrive there, bringing volunteers, soldiers, aid. It was a symbol of connection to the rest of the country.
And
Now it's being called a ghost city. Estimates suggest maybe 2,800 civilians are left, living in basements. The train station is rubble. The city is being leveled by guided bombs. But, and this is the testament to their resilience, the defense holds. The city is ruined, but the fortress stands.
That destruction brings us to the Russian strategy causing it. You mentioned earlier the Iron Claw. That sounds like something out of a bad action movie, but the sources are treating it very seriously. What exactly is the Iron Claw tactic?
It's a shift in operational thinking from the Russian command. In the early days, think back to Bakhmut or Soledar, we saw massive frontal assaults.
The meat assault.
Just wave after wave of infantry, meat assaults, trying to take the city block by block. The Iron Claw is different. It's what we're seeing in Pokrovsk and now in Kostiantynivka.
So they aren't trying to storm the city center immediately?
Not at first, no. They try to sever the land connections, the railways and the roads that surround the city. They squeeze the logistics until the city is isolated. It's suffocation rather than a knockout punch.
So they want to force a withdrawal by cutting off supplies rather than fighting street to street against defenders who are dug in.
Precisely.
That explains the intensity in Pokrovsk. The sources say combat occurrences there exceeded 50 per day. I mean, that's a third of the total clashes across the entire national front in one spot.
It is relentless. It's a strategy designed to exhaust the defender. But, there is a weird paradox here. On one hand, you have this Iron Claw tactical sophistication. On the other hand, you have a systemic rot in the Russian command structure that is actively sabotaging their own success.
This is the beautiful report crisis. I really want to dive into this because it feels like something from the Soviet era that just never went away.
It never did. It's actually gotten worse.
So lay it out for us. General Gerasimov, the head of the Russian armed forces, is telling the Kremlin that they have seized Kupiansk.
Right. He's claiming victory. He's pointing to a map somewhere in Moscow and saying, we own this.
But they haven't?
No, not at all. ISW, geolocated footage, Ukrainian drone teams, everyone confirms Kupiansk is not in Russian hands.
So what is happening? Are they just lying to their boss?
It's a systemic lie. It's the beautiful report. See, commanders on the ground are terrified of reporting failure. In that system, bad news doesn't get you help. It gets you fired. Or investigated.
Or sent to the front yourself.
Exactly. So they manufacture success.
How? You can't just fake capturing a city.
You can if you stage it. They send small groups of soldiers on what are essentially suicide missions. Their orders are to run into a city center, plant a Russian flag, take a picture or a video, and then they usually get killed.
The flag-raising mission. That is incredibly cynical.
It's performative warfare. They send that photo up the chain of command. The colonel tells the general, look, here's the photo, we have the city. The general tells Putin, we have the city.
And the whole time, the reality on the ground is what?
It's that maybe 50 to 90 Russian soldiers are trapped in a basement somewhere in Kupiansk, surrounded by Ukrainian forces.
And the worst part is, the sources say these trapped soldiers are being fed lies by their own commanders.
Yes, they are on the radio, they're calling for help, and their commanders are telling them, hold on, reinforcements are coming, we control the area, just to keep them fighting, just to keep the charade going for the higher-ups.
It's actually staggering when you look at the numbers. The sources mention a statistic from early January. Russia claimed they gained 300 square kilometers of territory.
And the reality is
about 74 square kilometers.
that is a 4 times inflation, a massive discrepancy.
That's not a rounding error. That's a hallucination. It makes you wonder how they can plan a spring offensive if their maps are essentially fantasy novels.
That's the strategic danger for them.
Yeah.
If Gerasimov orders a massive column of tanks to move through an area he thinks is safe because of a beautiful report, but it's actually full of Ukrainian anti-tank teams, that column is going to be annihilated.
It's dangerous for them.
Very. But, and we have to be clear here, it's still deadly for the Ukrainians.
Because those flag raisers are still armed soldiers. They still shoot back.
Exactly. A lie involving 10,000 troops is still 10,000 troops you have to fight. But I want to pivot to something that honestly scares me more than the infantry tactics or the command lies. We need to talk about the tech.
The drones.
The drones. Specifically the Molniya 2.
So, for the listener who thinks a drone is just a little quadcopter buzzing around, what is the Molniya 2?
It's a fixed-wing FPV drone. So think of it more like a small, cheap airplane than a helicopter. It's fast, carries a significant payload, but the upgrade, that's what matters. They're equipping these things with Starlink terminals.
Wait, Starlink? As in Elon Musk's satellite internet? I thought that was geofence. I thought Russian forces were blocked from using it.
They're supposed to be, but the sources are clear. Russian units, specifically the Rubicon Center for Advanced Unmanned Technologies, have figured out how to rig these drones with illicit Starlink terminals.
How?
Likely bought through third-party countries and smuggled in.
So what does that do to the battlefield? Why does Starlink on a drone matter so much?
It removes the horizon. Usually a drone pilot needs a direct radio link. If the drone goes too far or dips low behind a hill, the signal cuts out. With Starlink, you have satellite control. You have global range.
So these Molniya drones are striking. How far?
25 to 100 kilometers deep behind Ukrainian lines.
That's terrifying. That completely changes the definition of the rear area.
It does. It means the supply trucks, the ambulances, the troop rotations on the E50 highway, which is way behind the front and used to be safe, are now being hunted.
It creates a kill zone where nothing is safe.
Precisely. It's forcing Ukraine to move logistics exclusively at night or in bad weather, which just slows everything down.
Are they fighting back against this?
The sources say SpaceX and the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense are working on it, trying to identify and shut down these specific terminals, but it's a massive game of digital whack-a-mole.
And it's not just the satellite drones. We're seeing fiber optic drones now.
In the Sloviansk direction, yes.
Mm.
This is low-tech meeting high-tech. It's a drone with a spool of wire, like an old TOW missile from the 1980s.
A wire in 2026.
It sounds archaic, but it's brilliant in a terrifying way. If the drone is connected by a physical wire to the controller, you can't jam it. Electronic warfare is useless against it. You can have the best jammer in the world, and that drone is still coming because the signal isn't in the air.
It really highlights the adaptability on both sides. But there's a human cost to this tech ramp-up on the Russian side, too. I saw a note in the sources about university students.
This is deeply disturbing, and it speaks to that moral decay we were discussing with the beautiful reports. The Russian Ministry of Defense is so desperate for tech-savvy operators, for these unmanned systems forces, that they're recruiting students from Moscow universities.
Recruiting or coercing?
Coercing. They are threatened with expulsion if they don't sign up. They are promised these nice, safe desk jobs, piloting drones.
But it's a bait and switch.
It's a common bait and switch. They sign the contract, and next thing they know, the drone unit is full.
And then?
And then they are handed a rifle and sent to the infantry meat grinder because the Iron Claw needs bodies.
That is just brutal. It really shows the manpower crunch. They're hiding behind the propaganda. They are eating their own young to keep this machine going.
It does.
Yeah.
And while all this grinding combat is happening, there's a whole other layer to this war happening in hotel rooms and power plants.
Let's talk about the diplomacy and the energy war. We had the talks in Abu Dhabi on January 24th. U.S., Ukraine, Russia.
And we have confirmation from Secretary of State Marco Rubio that U.S. security guarantees are 100% ready. That is a big signal. It tells Kyiv, we have your back for the long haul.
But then we have this weird request from President Trump, a one-week moratorium on energy strikes.
Yes, and Russia agreed to it.
Which feels suspicious.
Extremely. Look, if you are winning the energy war, you don't stop out of the goodness of your heart. My analysis. It's a tactical pause. Russia likely needs a week to stockpile missiles, perform maintenance on their launchers.
Assess their targeting data.
Right, so they pause, let Ukraine relax for a second, and then hit harder.
That's the fear. But the scary thing is, they didn't even need to strike yesterday to cause chaos.
Right, the events of January 31st. The breaking news from yesterday morning, a massive grid failure.
This is critical. There were no missile strikes yesterday. But the 400 kilowatt and 750 kilowatt lines, the big arteries of the power grid, they just shut down. Cumulative damage, fatigue. The system has been battered for years. It's like a boxer who's taken too many hits. Eventually, he collapses, even if no one punched him in that specific round.
That caused cascading blackouts, right?
Huge ones. And that aligns with the Russian strategy. They want to split Ukraine's power system into islands. Isolated pockets that can't share power.
If the grid fragments, the industry stops. The trains stop.
It's a war on the infrastructure just as much as on the trenches. Which brings us to the big picture. We are in February 2026. The Russians have a deadline.
The famous April 1st deadline.
They want to capture all of Donetsk by April 1st.
Spoiler alert, it's not going to happen.
You sound confident.
It's just math. I mean, they have advanced roughly 1.5% of territory over the last 3 years to capture the rest of Donetsk in 2 months. Structurally, logistically. It is just unrealistic.
But they are throwing everything at it. The report from this morning, February 1st, says 338 combat clashes in 24 hours. That is an insane level of violence.
It is. But high intensity doesn't always equal high progress. Ukraine is holding the bridgeheads at the Oskol River. They are conducting these effective counterattacks like we saw at Yablunivka. They are outmanned, yes, but they are fighting smarter.
And they are resilient. I think that's the word of the day. Resilience.
Absolutely. The fortress belt is battered. Kostiantynivka is a ghost town. But the line on the map, it hasn't broken. The defenders at Yablonivka pushed back. The grid engineers are out there right now fixing those lines under threat of drone strikes.
So what does this all mean for the listener? We have a stalemate that isn't really a stalemate. It's a high-speed technological race to kill logistics.
It's a race between Russian mass infantry, mass cheap drones, mass deception, and Ukrainian precision and resilience. The Iron Claw is trying to close, but the Ukrainians keep jamming it open.
And the beautiful report might be the wrench in the Russian gears.
That's the key takeaway for me. You cannot win a modern war with lies. If your map says you own a city and your supply trucks drive into it and get blown up because you don't actually own it, your system collapses.
And that's where we have to leave it for today. You've been listening to Defense Report by Alex and Arya, where we analyze the latest in military strategy, global defense, and advanced weaponry.
And here's a thought to leave you with. If General Gerasimov is making strategic decisions for the spring offensive based on maps that show he owns Kupiansk when he doesn't, how massive will the strategic error be when he orders troops to move through a safe zone that is actually full of Ukrainian artillery? Could the beautiful report be the thing that causes a Russian collapse this spring?
Something to think about.
Subscribe to Defense Reports, your go-to source for timely, in-depth military and defense reports. We'll catch you next time.